Hello, everybody. This is Joe David Cantu from Hispanic News Online, and we have another Latina that we want to introduce you to. We're doing this 30 for 30 Hispanic Heritage Month, introducing a new Latino or Latino to the Latino or Latina to the audience, and we hope to inspire and also connect some of the Latinos throughout the country to each other. And so today we're bringing somebody from the West Coast, and I'm going to tell you that the story that she has to tell is amazing, not only from the beginning to what she's doing now. So I hope you guys enjoy. But let me introduce to you my friend Graciela. Graciela, come on board and just tell everybody a little bit about yourself.
Hi, Joe David. Thank you so much for this opportunity. Yes, I think the briefest way to introduce myself is as a daughter of Mexican immigrants, Arturo and Tina Tiscareño, oldest of five children, fortunate to win an Air Force scholarship to attend UC Berkeley in California, which led me to become an officer in the United States Air Force. And that'll get you up to age 18. And then from there on, I graduated, became a lieutenant, served for 9.5 years in the U.S. Air Force, flying on board the KC-135s as an aviator. Basically, the KC-135 is a flying gas station. So I had the great fortune of living on and serving on four continents, deploying frequently, one, two, three times a year. And then got my graduate degree while I was serving. So I have a master's in international business management. And then from there transitioned into the business part of my life, which we can talk about during this interview.
Whoa, 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 whoa. You know what? You're going way too fast. So you're a pilot in the Army? I mean, the Air Force? Tell me about that. How'd you get started there?
So in the Air Force, we have pilots, co-pilots, and aircraft navigators. These are the three aeronautical ratings, in addition, to the astronauts and such. But in the Air Force proper, in the armed forces, there are pilots who go to pilot training, there's navigators who go to navigator training, and then there's also various enlisted specialties, and those are the service members that go in straight out of college, or I'm sorry, straight out of high school, that enlist. What I'm talking about that I had a chance to do is I was able to get a scholarship to go to college first, and this is very important to the work that I do now to speak in schools and to write books is to tell this story to our young people is you probably know somebody who has gone into the Army or the Marines after high school, and that's fine. But there's another option, and that's my story. And that option is to have the armed services. You pick, because they all have scholarships, and you go to college first. I did the Air Force Reserve Officer Training Program. That's Air Force ROTC. And that pays for your entire tuition for all 4 years, even out of state. So that's what I did. And so upon graduation, Joe David, I raised my right hand and I became a lieutenant in the United States Air Force. So I did not go in straight out of high school, which means that you're always going to be enlisted and you'll always make less money than the officers. The officers go in with their college education. And if you look at the military pay scale, we're on the O1 for Officer 1. That's your first pay, and it's typically 2.5 to 3 times more than what you're making out of high school. So education first, paid for by the Air Force, and then I became a lieutenant, and then I went straight down the road to Sacramento to start undergraduate navigator training. So, people know what a pilot is. A navigator is the professional backseat driver that tells the pilots what to do and how fast to do it to get the mission done. And our mission was to literally connect our airplane to another airplane in the sky and offload the gas on our plane to their plane so they could do their mission. So literally a flying gas station. And my job, frankly, was to be the mathematician on board, to do the math and the calculations to get the airplanes where we need to be at the right time so that we can make that happen. So not a pilot, but sitting right next to the pilot and controlling the mission timing and direction.
You make it so like it's nothing. Oh my God, I'm talking to an Air Force navigator, which I mean in itself is tremendous. I mean a Latina, a female in the Air Force as a navigator. I mean that's a story in itself. Um, does does can any kid or any child pretty much try to get a scholarship for the military?
Absolutely. Here's the process. I learned about this, let me tell you how it happened, because I had a history of zero people in the military in my family. So I think that's very important to start there. Is this is not because I have a legacy of military service. This is not because I knew things. This is because I was, as a kid, constantly asking questions because I knew that there had to be a way. I think too many of our young people think the counselor's too busy to help him or her. Oh, they don't want to talk to me. They're too busy. There's 1,000 kids. And our kids are not always assertive enough to go ask the counselor whose job it is to counsel and give those pieces of advice. But I was that person. I was the kid that would go in there all the time and say, so I want to go to college. We have 5 children. My parents have not been able to save any money to send us to school. I'm the oldest. How do I go to Berkeley? Because I already knew I wanted to go to Berkeley. It was the #1 school for architecture and environmental design, which is what I wanted to study, and I did major in that. So I want to go there. How do I do that? And I was in Colorado. So important to say, I was in Colorado in a very small little town of, like a town where the meat packing plant was the biggest employer. And so I wanted to go to Berkeley, which is the #1 public university in the country. So how does that happen? How does that work? And so my counselor, bless her heart, invited me to her house and said, my husband was in your situation, and come to dinner at my house. He will tell you about the Air Force ROTC that made it possible for him to go to school. So because I kept asking, I got an answer, and I got this beautiful invitation. So yes, any kid can apply, but you have to know about it, which is why I'm so grateful to you for helping me communicate my story, because this is an opportunity that the Navy has, that ROTC. Now, there's a process. So first I found out about it, and then I got the application. You can do that online. And then you go through a series of steps, from an interview with several of the officers that are currently in the service. So I had to go and imagine this. At age 17, I had to go into this big room at the university in my city. And I think there was 5 uniformed Air Force officers, 2 men, 3 women, 2 women, 3 men, sitting behind a long table. And they were asking me questions about why I wanted to serve, why I wanted to be in the Air Force, what did I think, that was unique about me, etc. So this interview with 5 uniformed officers. So, it can be intimidating to you, but, I always just had my eye on the opportunity that I had in front of me. And then, of course, a physical examination that you have to go through. Are you healthy? Do your eyes work? You don't have to have perfect eyes, but the better, your eyes are, then you can be available for more positions. So yeah, any kid that has, good grades, competitive grades, is thinking about, degrees in science, technology. The more technical fields are going to be more competitive for these aviation scholarships, because the training is all very technical, right? So any kid can apply. It is open to any U.S. citizen. The requirements are all spelled out on the different scholarship pages. But it's absolutely important that we tell our kids that the scholarship is available so they can get their college education first and paid for first by the military. And then you go in as a leader, as an officer, as a lieutenant. And from day one, you're on the management track. You're on the leadership track. And if you're blessed like I was, you might get to fly. I didn't even know that was coming, but it was an opportunity that presented itself 2 years into the program at Berkeley.
Wow, that's amazing. And so, right after the military service, did you start a new organization with the Speaking Bureau? Is that what you did? Because you're absolutely wonderful to listen to. Your voice is magic, and you have great speaking techniques. So, tell me a little bit about your Speaking Bureau.
Well, to answer your question, it didn't start after the military. I started speaking in front of people in church when I was 13. I remember my mom and the priest talking, and he said, what do you think? Would she like to be one of our, lectors during the Mass? And I said, sure. And it was super easy. I just had to go in there a few minutes early, and he would give me the Bible and circle with the passages that we're reading today, and I would read them in front of everybody. So I think from very early on, 13, 14, 15, I was given this opportunity to stand before people and, share the word, speak. So that was easy. No preparation required, right?
Right.
And I loved it. I loved watching the people react. I loved watching the heads agree. I loved watching the smiles. I liked the eye contact with the audience. I just remember that it was really cool to have that that opportunity to stand and share. And it really started that early. And so I think as I reflect on your question, it really started way back then. I published my first newspaper byline when I was 15 after a summer program that I had, like a girl state civics, pretend you're running the city and running elections, and really civics procedures summer camp that I had. And I loved it, and I wrote an article about it because I had had this cool experience and I wanted others to know about it. And honestly, Joe David, that is the pattern of my life. I had this amazing opportunity, so I could just take it and enjoy it and do it and then keep going, or I could stop, share, write about it, and that others can read about it and say, wow, I didn't even know that was a thing. I'd like to apply for that, or I'll show this to my daughter or my niece. And so I think as I reflect on what I do now as a publisher, as an author, and as a keynote speaker, it's the same pattern. And even when I was in the Air Force, to answer your question, I was always writing. If we deployed over Christmas to a Greek island to help bring humanitarian supplies into Somalia, then I was writing a story about what we did on Wednesday. And then I was sending it back to the base, and then the base newspaper would publish what we were doing, that what we were accomplishing, because our families missed us, right? We're far away from home. They miss us. They think we're forever far away. But I figured if we can tell them what we're doing, then they can be with us and they can celebrate what we're doing instead of only missing us. And so I've always been writing. I've always been sharing and speaking and articulating cool experiences. And, I just tell people the content has changed. Now I actually tell the stories of other Latinos in leadership and entrepreneurship, and I'm sure we'll talk about that coming up. And now I'm publishing my own story of my military service in a bilingual children's book. So it's a continuing pattern of my life, being compelled to share with others the extraordinary experiences that I've been blessed to have, so that others can hopefully decide to go for it and to emulate. And that I can make a business out of that, I think is what I'm most happy about now.
When I first met you, it's because you were brought to my attention because of your military and the stuff you're doing with female veterans. So can you highlight this a little bit more so that people know what I'm talking about?
So the work I'm doing with female veterans, I guess the best way to answer that is to tell you what I just did last weekend. Is I was in Boston. There's an organization called Veteran Women Igniting the Spirit of Entrepreneurship. It's a mouthful. It abbreviates to letter V, like very, and then WISE, and it's a program out of Syracuse University. What VWISE does is it's created by an Air Force veteran who's a professor of entrepreneurship. And he recognized that women who wear the uniform, like me and like so many others, we come out of the military and we have taken so many risks. We've been asked to do things that we never even imagined were even a thing that can be done. We've been tasked with missions on the other side of the world. We've been tasked with managing people, budgets, airplanes, missions, always under, time-critical situations, right? So the gentleman at VWISE in Syracuse recognized, doesn't it just make sense that those women would be most likely interested in starting their own businesses? And so what I've been able to do, and what I was doing in Boston, is I'm an instructor with the VWISE program. And what I did on Sunday, 2 weeks ago, is I taught a personal branding for military veterans and military spouses class. So I'm actually teaching my military sisters and the spouses of military members how to articulate their value as spouses, as veterans, depending on what their role has been, because they've seen stuff, they've done stuff, right? They've endured things. And, how do you take that experience and articulate it into the value you want to provide going forward as an entrepreneur? And so I taught the workshop in Boston at the conference, and I do that a lot. I mentor, on the phone, just helping military women transition out, and men too, to be fair. I've done a lot of courses in universities for student veterans as well. I love doing that. Personal branding for student veterans at a university. I love that because they're already out, they're getting their education, and they're looking forward to what's next. So I like to be a resource for them and, stand there and share my network, share what I've learned, and really help each of them to reflect on stories, their experience, and bring it forward in a compelling thread about the experience, but not in a way that feels arrogant and wrong to them. It's a craft to be able to talk about all the amazing, incredible things you've been able to do as a military person without being overbearing. And so that balance of how do I tell you, about my badass experiences, as some people like to say, without really sounding like it's too much, right? And so I like to teach them that because the military teaches a lot of skills. It does not teach how to articulate your individual value going forward. And so that's one of the ways that I serve my community now of veterans, is that way. So I think that's what you're referring to.
So do you do it across the country all the time? I mean, how does that work with you?
Yeah, so my favorite groups to speak to are student veteran groups at universities. So, and this is not strictly for military veterans. For example, in March next year, I'll be speaking at Texas A&M for the Latino students. They're bringing me in to do a personal branding for college students workshop. So I'll do this for college students as well as veterans and spouses at conferences because frankly, it's a skill that I worked very hard to master over the 13 and a half years I've been out of the service. And it is an imperative skill for anybody that is, looking for a job, looking for grad school entry, or starting a business, right? You must be comfortable with speaking about yourself and your value before you can really articulate the value of products and services that you offer. Because people want to know, well, who are you, right? And so it's a very important skill. So yes, conferences, professional associations, universities, that's where I've been doing the personal branding workshops for vets and students.
Okay, we've been talking about for 17 minutes, okay? I'm going to tell you. And you're a navigator. You're a Latina. You're a children's writer, a book publisher. You're a motivational speaker. I would say that. Mike, do you ever sleep?
Of course I do. Of course I sleep. No, I love when you list everything and I remind people, yes, I've been those things and I am those things, but you're talking about a 30-year resume after high school. Okay. So it is an accumulation of work that I've been doing. And, it sounds like a lot, but, that is the thing, it's like, please understand students that, you too can have a resume like this in 30 years, but it's going to take you 30 years, right? Because it's a lifetime of work that you work on. You work on one thing and another thing, you get another interest and you layer the interest, you layer the education, another door opens, another opportunity. It's because you're always going forward and you're known to people and people bring you opportunities. If you're sitting back in a corner hoping something happens to you, nothing's going to happen to you. Everything that's ever happened that I've ever had a chance to do is because I was out there asking. I was out there saying, how does that work? Who can connect me? How can I make that happen? Is there a scholarship for that? Who can fund that? Who do I need to talk to? It's that constant asking. And so, yeah, those are a lot of things you listed that I've been able to do, but it has been a lifetime of work to get there. The current work is as speaker, publisher, and mother. Let's not forget that.
That's true.
And, yeah, there's a lot to talk about there because my oldest child is blind and visually impaired as well. So there's a whole other conversation about raising children with special needs that we can have.
Oh my. You know what? We did we talk about the publishing? I mean, tell me because you said that your publishing is aimed mostly is it the Latino community?
Yes. So here's what happened. About 4.5 years ago, I had an idea about an article for a feature in Hispanic MBA magazine. And this is the National Society of Hispanic MBAs that I'm a member of. And the editor called me saying, can you write a feature article again? And I said, sure. And I was thinking about the green economy and I was thinking about, because I was working at Siemens, by the way, the German conglomerate. I was in a sustainability and marketing role there at the time. So he asked me to write this article. And I said, yeah, the idea that I have is this question. now that the green economy is really a thing and different industries are in transformation, are Latinos participating? It seems like we should be, because we've all been raised to be really smart with resources, to reuse everything, be smart with what we have. The cortina becomes the vestido, and like all the different reuse things. And I know you can think of some, right?
Right.
So when you are raised in a culture of being smart with resources and reusing everything, it seems that we would be the first community that should be innovating in the green economy and should be thinking about better ways to do it. So when he asked the question, I said, yeah, I have this idea for this article. So he said, great idea. Do you know people? Can you find? I said, absolutely. So long story short is I published this article about Hispanic environmental advocates leading the way, the greening of America. And I put the spotlight on the Latino leaders in business and entrepreneurs who were looking at the status quo across different industries and saying, no, I can do better than that. I can do better in packaging. I can do better in energy storage. I can invent a new way, a new system, a new technology. And so as I started looking around and finding more and more people, I thought, you know what? This is the untold story of Latinos in this country. How inventive we are. We are inventing entire technology systems. Don't hear about it in the news because the news is not looking for those stories, right? They're getting pitches from the usual, right?
Right.
So I decided that I would write a book after the article, people. And so basically, here's what's happened. I am creating the first book series, and it's book and ebook, for use by sixth graders all the way through business school students. Okay, the customers and the clients come from all the way from middle school to business school, where we can finally start learning from Latinos. And the book series is called Latinovating. The root word is innovating, full word with an LAT in front of it. So it's actually a registered trademark. And it's 10 case studies of childhood through higher education, through entrepreneurship and innovation case studies, chock full of resources in lots of different industries. The intention, Joe David, is that people use this book and sit down with a young person and say, here's why you should go to college. So that you can be like Rosa Maria, or that you can invent something like Frank Ramirez, or that you can engineer this, brand new lighting systems that are 60% more efficient, like Humberto Rincon. These are our stories, our case studies, our business success, our innovation stories, and we must put them in front of our kids and their peers. Because then and only then are we telling a different story of who Latinos are in this country. And now more than ever, that is a critical thing for us to do. It's about the positive media images, the positive stories. And so I decided to be really sneaky and do it as literature in schools. Because then you're actually learning college-going material. You're learning green economy industries. You're learning STEM careers. All educators want that. But you just happen to be learning about Latinos.
Oh, you're awesome. That is so awesome. This is why we're doing this podcast series. I told you this earlier that we're trying to debunk the Trumpisms out there of all the false information about Latinos. That's why I'm introducing people like yourself to the community, because I don't want to fight negative with negative. I want to show them what the positive side of a Latino are in this country, and you're a great example of it. So I love this whole project of yours. This is great.
Well, thanks. And, I do it with so much love. It takes forever, because for each chapter, I have to understand what is this industry called large format industrial printing. What is that? Because I have to be able to write, intelligently a little primer about the industry before I introduce you to Carmen's incredible invention that she came up with in Los Angeles, how to make that better. And so it's really a teaching book. And I just finished the 8th interview of the 10th that I'm doing for volume 2. So my plan is to have an entire book series, 10 stories in a book. As I think I have 7 volumes planned out already, because there are so many incredible stories. And they're all very powerful personal stories. They're personal journeys. They represent many Latin American countries and points of origin. And I'm being very intentional, mixing, half of the stories are men, half of the stories are of women, because I want to keep that balance so that the niños and the niñas both have, some really strong examples. But I encourage people to really use this book to mentor and to say, yes, we have examples. And, I do a lot of writing and peer editing workshops in schools, like middle school and up. I'll come in and, they'll read the book, they'll read a chapter, we'll discuss it, and then we'll actually do a writing exercise. And then I get the kids to edit each other's work. And so I come in as an author, an award-winning author, and I use those credentials to help kids express themselves better, but very importantly, to be open to making the writing better through collaboration. Because, too many people think they have to have like perfect writing before anybody reads it. And I come in and I tell them the process of publishing a book and how many people are involved and how it's not an awesome book that's won 5 awards because of my writing. God, no. It's a great book because I had this amazing editor who cut 10,000 words out before we did anything, right? And it's a great book because of the proofreading, and it's a great book because of the book designers, and it's the whole team approach. So I love to now use my credential, if you will, of being an award-winning author and publisher to encourage kids to express themselves and to not be afraid to collaborate to make the writing better. So I love doing all of that. It's really a joy to go into schools.
You're amazing. You're amazing. And the first time I met you and talked to you, I was just like, I've got to have her. When I do this podcast series, she's going to be one of the first people that I'm going to talk to about this. You know what? At this point in time, we've had a little bit of problems technically because there's a little bit of a breakup every once in a while. So I want to give you the opportunity to give everybody your information of how they can contact you, because I know that if they have any questions, they can reach out to you, and you're going to reach out back to them and give them as much contact as you can, because I know you. You're just that way. So if you don't mind, would you please tell everybody, I'm going to go ahead and put this on the site as, for information for them to get also, but I'd like for you to go ahead and tell them where they can find you.
Sure. I'm on LinkedIn at full name of Graciela Tiscareño-Sato. Same on Facebook. I'm on Twitter at Grace, a shortened version of it. Preserve the characters, right? Grace Tiscareño on Twitter. And on the web, I think the best place to send people to look at our literature. Now, I have to add this. Our 2 titles of Latinovating and the first children's book, The Goodnight Captain Mama, Buenas Noches Capitan Mama, which is my service story in a fiction book about a Captain Mama who flies planes. I really encourage people to look at that because you can't be what you can't see. And the sooner we can get our little kids to imagine they can fly airplanes, the more they'll be able to really let their imaginations fly. So I think the best place I'm going to give you, Joe David, is Gracefully Global, which is the name of my business, Gracefully Global Group. But the website is gracefullyglobal.com. And then there's links to the books and everything. But gracefullyglobal.com/commerce is where you can see all the books and DVDs that we produce. And they're all educational. They're used, again, K through 12 and all the way through college. So gracefullyglobal.com/commerce. And there'll be descriptions to all of the literature that we produced. Our first 2 titles have won 9 literary awards. So I have to tell you that I really feel the world is ready for Latinos and Latinas to write literature that is impactful and inspirational. And we don't have to go through big, giant publishers to make that happen. We can create our own publishing businesses and really own our own intellectual property. And I believe very strongly in that.
And don't you believe that also that, you've had incredible experiences and you've had great opportunities, but there is a lot of moms who sit at home who have an incredible amount of knowledge that if they took just a few minutes out of their day to write some stuff down and pass that information along, that a book like that would be something that would just be so different and so inspiring to other Latinas and informative to the whole community, don't you think?
Absolutely. I think that's why so many Latina mommies are blogging, right? Whether they do it in English or Spanish or both. Any little tips, anything you've figured out, to keep your child interested in reading a little longer, or how do you work your, bilingual activities in when you've only got an hour and a half with them a day or whatever, right? Anything that they can write down, even if they never actually put it up as a blog, if they write a little bit each day about something, then all you really need is one day to have an editor put it all together for you, and you do have a booklet or a book. And then from there, you can figure out the publishing steps of how you want to do it. But the key is to create content. The key is to get your knowledge down. You're right. It's important to do that.
One more thing I want to say to everybody that's listening to this out there. The only thing that stops you from succeeding is yourself. All you have to do is pick up the phone, write an email, send a message to all these people that you're now getting to meet through these podcasts. Because I'm going to tell you that these folks who have come on to give you information about what they're doing, they're more than willing to share with you. But you have to take that first step. And Graciela, isn't it true? If somebody emails you, you're going to respond at some point.
Oh, absolutely. I have a process for that. I get up early on Saturdays or Sundays and just answer email. I don't do it during the weeks. I stay focused on business tasks, but I will get back to people on weekends, with email. And I do a lot of voice texting. I'll take a walk and I'll answer emails via voice, but I find a way. And that's the thing, so many people, I'll go to a school and I'll hand out my cards at a university and I'll say to the students, reach out to me. Let me make a connection for you. Informational interviews, something that you need to learn to be successful with what you're doing next. And I'll hand out 100 cards and I'll get 3 phone calls or emails.
Yeah.
Because 97% of people think I'm too busy and I won't respond back to them.
Right.
And I think, well, if I was not going to respond back to you, why am I standing here offering? But that's the thing. It's those 3 that do, contact me. We end up having friendships for years and years. As a matter of fact, one of the girls that I met when I first started doing this is now my personal assistant. I met her when she was a sophomore in college because she was so proactive and took such initiative that now, I actually hire her to help me. So, yeah, it's about reaching out and being specific with the requests and, how can I actually help you? And I don't want to hear your whole life story, but I do want you to tell me how I can help you. Tell me, what is it that you need? I need to talk to a doctor of podiatry. Okay. I'm thinking about studying this. Okay. I can connect you with an archaeologist, whatever. It's just people need to have that confidence to know that nothing's going to happen until I start asking questions. And I hope that my story that started that way with me asking questions of my counselor, I hope that's another proof point of that, is that you never stop. And yeah, it's very important.
Well, there you go, everybody. We've got another 30 minutes with another great Latina. I hope that you learned something new and understand what this Latina, Graciela, is doing and how her life, even though she's doing her own thing that she loves doing, is impacting so many people. Please don't forget, ask, call in, send letters, requests to talk to these people because they will help you. Graciela, I can't thank you enough for taking time out of your day and sharing your story with us. Is there anything else you'd like to say at the end here?
Never underestimate the power of literature to shape the mind of a child. I want to leave this visual with you. I was talking to a professor friend of mine. Her name is Dr. Nelly Cardenale. She just finished her PhD 2 years ago, so she's a profesora in Florida. And we were walking around in LA, and I said to her, "So Nelly, when did you know you wanted to be a professor?" She said to me, "Graciela, when I was 9 years old, I read a book written by an African American man who was super poor. And this book he wrote because he had worked his way out of poverty through education all the way to becoming a professor. And I read this book as a poor Puerto Rican girl. And when I read the book at the age of 9, that to be successful and to have a happy, fulfilled life, and a professor was a way to do it, I realized I was going to be a professor at the age of 9. Well, she was 56 when she finally became a PhD and became a professor. But that's why I tell you the story is at the age of 9, one book sparked her imagination and she committed to that goal. So I just want to emphasize that never ever underestimate the power of literature for our kids.
Oh, thank you very much. Graciela, thank you very much again for your time. Everybody, mañana es otro día, and we'll have another Latino and Latina for you to get to know. I can't say enough thanks to Graciela because I'm hoping that you guys learn some stuff today and get to reach out to her. Gracias, and stay tuned for mañana because we have another Latino and Latina for you at Hispanic News Online. It's 30 for 30 for Hispanic News for Hispanic Heritage Month, so stay tuned. Thank you very much, everyone.